Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of TV on TV. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. We're here on Brookline Interactive Group. This week, we're going to talk with Brookline Chamber of Commerce Executive Director Debbie Good-Miller, and we're going to talk about really how our health response to the coronavirus has impacted local businesses and what the plans for the future look like. But before that, as always, we're going to go through some state and local recent changes to make sure everybody's on the same page. And in fact, before we do that, I'll go ahead and just put it up there. Tommy Vitolo, 617-872-8921, tommy.vitolo@mahouse.gov. If you've got something going on and you could use my help, give me a ring. If there's an idea you've got that would make state government work better, give me a ring. If we're not getting it right and you want to let us know all about that, give me a ring. Feel free to email as well and do it anytime. So what's happened in the past week? Quickly, I want to point out that the MBTA D line will be bus only from June 6 to 14 and again, June 20 to 28. What the MBTA has done is taken its weekend closures and crushed them together to 2 9-day blocks, which will allow them to finish the project much, much sooner. And since fewer people are relying on the Green Line right now because they are working from home, this seems like a great time to do it, and hats off to the T for being on the ball. So again, the D line is going to be shuttle buses, June 6 to 14, and again, June 20 to 28. For those of you like me and really like my kids who love returning your soda cans and your beer cans and your seltzer cans and bottles for those nickels and haven't been able to do it for a few months, great news. Starting June 5th, you can bring them back as long as you're bringing them back to one of those reverse vending machines where you slide the can in and it spins it and crushes it. So starting June 5th, you can do that. My kids are thrilled because this dramatically increases the amount of spending money that they have. Not that they've been outside to spend it in months, but for them it's important. So bottle returns are coming back. If you return by hand, it's another 2-week wait. If you do it on that reverse vending machine, you can do it beginning June 5th. Good news for all Celtics and Bruins and Red Sox and Patriots players who live in Brookline. You can go back to practice. The governor has said that professional sports teams may resume practice, so you're good to go if you're one of my many pro sports viewers. What else have we got quickly? Oh, hey, I did something yesterday. We're going to talk about it in a few minutes, but just to let you know, the governor is looking at relaxing rules around restaurants and hotels, and that would begin on June 8th. We're still waiting for the final green light for outdoor dining and for people to be allowed to stay in hotel rooms again for non-emergency or non-COVID related reasons or those who are not experiencing homelessness. So that may be coming. We think it's going to happen June 8th, but really until June 8th comes and we're sure, don't count on it. Know that businesses are getting ready for it though. And that's a good prospect. What else have I got? Oh, finally, in Brookline, the Board of Health and the Select Board have come together and decided that there is an eviction moratorium. The state already has one. The Brookline moratorium applies both to residential and commercial. And importantly, if the unit currently is under lease, the landlord or the real estate agent or anyone else cannot show that unit to anyone else. So if you've got an apartment, you're there until, say, September 1st when your lease is up, and it's in Brookline, the real estate agent cannot bring someone else in to show your apartment in this era of COVID-19. That's a sensible idea, so sensible that I filed it for a statewide bill. It didn't get enough traction, but it's an idea that I thought was a good one. So that's sort of the long and short of what's been going on town and state in response to COVID-19. We will get to what the House passed yesterday. But before we get there, let's just get started with our guest, Debbie Good-Miller from the Brookline Chamber of Commerce. Debbie, thank you for being here today. I'm grateful that you're here. Maybe you could start by explaining maybe what the Chamber of Commerce does and how that's different from what some of my viewers imagine these sort of very, very strong and aggressive chambers of commerce do when they lobby the federal government for all sorts of things. Maybe you can characterize the kinder, gentler Brookline Chamber of Commerce for a minute.
Hey, Tommy, thanks so much for inviting me on TV. This is great. I really appreciate the opportunity to get the word out. A lot of people, I think, have a misconception about the Brookline Chamber of Commerce. We're an independent nonprofit organization of 501c6. We're not at all affiliated with the U.S. Chamber. Make no, I mean, we're clearly not associated with the U.S. Chamber. We're not associated with any other chambers either. We're independent. For years, this Brookline Chamber of Commerce has done an excellent job in advocating for businesses, helping businesses market and get the word out about who they are and what they do, and making valuable connections. Now more than ever, because businesses are struggling, they really need our help. An example of an important connection, for example, there are several examples I could give you. One example that comes to mind is a car repair shop that has been repairing cars for the healthcare workers. Needed PPE. They didn't know where to get it, and we put them in touch with local providers who could give them that so that they could go on with their work. And there are several examples of connections like that. We've also tried to get the word out about what businesses are doing and how they're doing business now, because everybody's had to pivot, as you can imagine. On the chamber website, brooklinechamber.com, we have a running list that was originally compiled by the Brookline Mutual Aid organization that has been tremendous during this whole pandemic. So businesses tell us how they're doing business, and that's a running list. In addition, we're really fortunate in that Lucia from the Tiny Hangar in Brookline suggested at a virtual town meeting that we have different signs perhaps so that people understand how businesses are operating during the pandemic. So now, thanks to her and Annika Surin, who has her own business, she's a graphic designer and has come up with these beautiful signs depicting 4 different ways businesses do business here in Brookline, and you'll see them up on storefronts if you walk around town. And you can also, again, check this list on the chamber website to find out how businesses are doing business, whether it's online or takeout and delivery or in person. There's a whole array of different ways people are operating. And there are a lot of different ways that you can support businesses right now. We're getting wonderful wonderful messages from people who want to help but don't know what to do. So if you're one of those people, good news is there are a lot of things you can do. Most businesses, though their doors might be closed and the lights are out, they're still in business and they are struggling and they need your support. So if you go online to their websites, you will see that you can still buy merchandise. Some have pickup options, some have delivery options. You can buy gift cards. You can buy gifts for friends. You can buy, at restaurants, you can buy food for first responders who often don't have the time and the energy to go grocery shopping or cook nowadays, and they would love that. There's one restaurant in town that's giving free food out to people who are needy and need food. We have restaurants right now that are being creative and changing their menus. We have a couple pizza places that are giving out make your own pizza kits for kids, knowing that they're home and need fun activities. So people are pivoting and doing interesting and fun things. And especially now that I'm sure we'll talk about it in more detail, now that restaurants can provide liquor, wine and beer, that's a whole nother realm of opportunities that people can take advantage of. And if you don't have the money right now to spend or to treat other people to merchandise or food, please go on your social media sites and share information from other businesses or tell people what you like. Go to Yelp, go to TripAdvisor. Let your network know that you are supportive of businesses and the particular businesses that you want to support.
So let's wind back to St. Patrick's Day, right? So you may recall the weekend before St. Patrick's Day, I think it was on a Tuesday this year, March 17th. And we were talking a lot about physical and so we were using the word social distancing, washing hands and being careful. And then there were these videos of people really packing into restaurants in South Boston and other places. And then very quickly, the governor got back from his vacation in Utah, and there was this realization that we were going to need to shut down a variety of social, cultural, and economic activity for some time. And I know that we had conversations about it, and the chamber was talking to its members, and businesses were starting to come around to this idea that this may be a reality, but it's hard to imagine. I mean, now we're kind of used to it, but at the time it was the idea of shutting down businesses was a big step. And in fact, I believe it took the leadership of Harvard and MIT saying we're closing down campuses to really help folks get there, but we got there. And the governor made an announcement that non-essential businesses had to close. And I suspect your phone was ringing off the hook, and that there was really this almost an existential crisis by so many shopkeepers who have, put everything they've got into their storefront. Can you sort of tell us what were maybe some common responses or common challenges that they were right about? What did shopkeepers say when this got started, when the shutdown got started, that they were absolutely right about?
I think it's been a struggle for everybody. Anybody who has a business, especially people who have a business that's relying on people coming in, everything from nail salons to hair salons to restaurants, retail stores. I think it's been a real struggle. I think it was pretty shocking for everybody initially, of course. And I think once people accepted that this was how they were going to have to do business, people have figured out what they could do. Everybody, I think, has assessed their situation, figured out what their resources are. Some businesses, a lot of businesses, quite frankly, have had to make some very tough decisions. I'm thinking of either furloughing or laying off staff that they care very much about and that they've relied on for quite some time. They've certainly had to have more of an online presence, but they have pivoted. They have they've found ways to make their business work. For example, Stoked Pizza alerted us us and the town that it was necessary if people were going to pick up meals from their restaurant, that they were going to have a temporary parking spot. And we wrote a letter to the town, and other people advocated for this too. And the town responded immediately. It was really impressive. Within days, there were signs everywhere in town for these parking spots. So I think a lot of people have been collaborating and making new ideas work.
Yeah, and so I presented this as all the businesses that were non-essential closed at once, but that's not actually true. In fact, the restaurants lost indoor seating first,
Right.
right? And so the restaurants have been working on this the longest. And, while it's true that in Brookline, many shops of all kinds are so-called mom and pops. In fact, in suburbia, restaurants are sometimes the only mom and pops or one of very few mom and pops. And so the upshot is statewide, people understood the plight that restaurants were facing. And frankly, we all have our favorites and we love going to those restaurants. And so we saw the town responded, you said, with parking spaces. And then I'll say it again, because some folks still don't know, the state legislature responded and said, you know what? You can get a couple of cold ones or a bottle of wine when you pick up that meal at a restaurant. And that's new. That was not permitted prior to March. And it is not a permanent change. I expect that we will at some point roll that back, much to the applause of the mom and pop package stores throughout town. So we have seen some response, particularly around restaurants. Are there any other changes that the town or the state has made that have tried to help bring these restaurants along or keep them above water, at least until we get into phase 2 or phase 3 or phase 4 and get out of this thing?
So that's a really good question. We're so fortunate to have the town government that we have. We're really, really fortunate. So the sign initiative that I mentioned was really led by the town. They are providing the sign. They made the signs available to any business that wanted them for free, and they delivered them to the businesses. And are still continuing to do that. They are looking into all kinds of possibilities for restaurants to be able to bump out and serve customers outside. They're totally thinking outside the box and trying to make do and figure out ways that they can help restaurants in their effort to serve more customers, knowing that with these restrictions, it's going to be really hard for them to survive.
Now, I know my viewers are thinking, wait, you're saying move restaurants outside? That's absurd. The bureaucracy associated with getting extra seats outside, or dare I say, serving alcohol outside, is insurmountable. Certainly something that government could not adapt to. And prior to yesterday, viewers, you could be right. But in fact, yesterday, the legislature, the House, passed H 4767, still has to go to the Senate, would still need to be signed by the governor or overridden. And it has 4 sections. It relates to restaurants, has 4 sections. And I want to, Debbie, I want to get your sense on maybe which ones of these are really big and which ones of these are just sort of fun, nice to haves. The first thing that the state said, the House of Representatives said, is the delivery fees assessed to restaurants by groups like Uber Eats, and there are others, cannot be 20, 25, 30% as we've seen. In fact, it's capped to 15%. Debbie, could you explain what that fee is and how it impacts restaurants? Most customers don't know anything about it. So I think it would be really helpful to explain what it is and what's had been happening or continues to happen until this becomes law.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Tommy. So let's go back a step. Before this even happened, it's important to understand that this really worked for restaurants prior to the pandemic, because even if the delivery companies took a big chunk, 30%, out of the total amount, which is a lot given their tight margins, it still worked for them because these delivery companies were marketing their restaurants. And so somebody who ordinarily might not have noticed their restaurant, they were bringing new customers in. And at the time, they had people sitting in their restaurants ordering meals and ordering alcohol. so that it made up for this. Now, flash to where we are now, and restaurants don't have the benefit of having indoor seating. And now they're still being taken, now the total amount of the bill, it's still being charged the 30%. And so essentially they're losing money. Not most, but quite a few restaurants are losing money because they don't want to increase their prices. They don't want to lose customers. So some restaurants are operating at a loss because of the exorbitant fees of these delivery companies. So the chamber has written a letter to the town, alerting them to this. I'm sure other people have been advocating for this as well. And we're very, very happy that it has been recognized that this is a problem. I know other communities throughout the country are working on this too. And we're thrilled that there's going to be, we're hoping that there will be a limit.
Yeah, so that, and again, that 30%, or if this becomes law, 15%, the customer doesn't see that. So when I place a $30 order through Uber Eats, it doesn't say plus $9. In fact, it just only pays the restaurant $21 instead of 30. And so that's a big bite, and it certainly has been raised. Oh, hello, hi, I'm on TV. So why don't we go ahead and have a kiss, and then I'll talk to you later, okay?
No.
Or do you want to stay here? Okay, in a few minutes, okay, sweetie?
Okay.
And we'll see you in a bit. This is living the COVID life. I apologize. So number one in the bill was restricting those fees to 15%. Number two, cocktails to go. Currently, restaurants can sell unopened beer, unopened bottles of wine to folks either buying food to go or having it delivered. And that's new. That was never allowed before COVID. This legislation also allows mixed drinks. Do you think that's going to be a substantial impact for restaurants in Brookline, or do you think that's going to be one of those, oh, by the ways?
I have no idea. I can't answer that. I don't know if, I think it all depends on the consumers. I mean, how people will respond to that. I just don't know. My understanding is I think people will have to put that in the trunk of their car when picking that up. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So that would be interesting to see. You know, if it helps restaurants, it'll be terrific. And I'm hoping it does.
So that's number two. Number three, this one will certainly have a positive impact. Exactly how much, I'm not sure, and I'd be shocked if you had specifics. I'm sure it varies restaurant to restaurant, but currently, under normal times, a restaurant would remit its meals tax receipts monthly to the state. And immediately the state said, well, hold on to those payments. We'll collect them later because we know you guys, you restaurants are really struggling with cash flow right now. The state has gone on in this bill, if it becomes law, to say that the interest and penalties associated with delaying those payments will not be collected. And so it's a relatively small amount, right? It's a fraction of the meals tax, but certainly more cash flow helps, and lowering the bills helps. Exactly how much I know is going to be we'll see, but there was no reason the legislature felt for the state to, sort of try to squeeze water from a stone on this one and extract penalties from restaurants who are shut down because the state said public health can't allow you to operate right now. But the fourth one I do want to talk about a lot, and that is the fourth part of this bill says that the state will not need to approve changes in operating restaurants associated with operating outside. And that includes changes to the liquor license. As some viewers know, there are all kinds of different liquor licenses available through the town in accordance with state law. Some can only sell beer and wine, whereas others can sell alcohol. Many can only do it inside. A few can do it outside. And so there's this idea, hey, restaurants will be able to open outdoors, but they don't have the permits to do that. And so can you tell us maybe more broadly what the town's got in store, what the Chamber of Commerce has been advocating for with respect to restaurants and expanded outdoor dining?
I know it's still in the brainstorming stages right now, in that there are no bad ideas, and a lot of people, including restaurant owners, have been coming up with suggestions. Everything from parks to alleyways to parking lots to sidewalks to streets. And this town is still mulling over all of these different suggestions. I do think there definitely will be some possibilities, some nice opportunities for restaurants. I don't know what they are right now, but it's exciting that the town is so receptive and that restaurants are part of the conversation.
Well, I can tell you, I'm looking forward to it. I had a conversation with Select Board Member Fernandez. I've also spoken with Select Board Member and candidate Hamilton about maybe moving some of the parking in business districts around the corner, essentially moving the sidewalks into the parking lane so that more of that concrete can become storefront for restaurants or for other retail. We know that it's much safer outside than inside with respect to coronavirus, particularly for the employees and of course the shopkeepers themselves. And so I'm delighted that the state is recognizing that and trying to get out of the way really and let towns make decisions about individual businesses on a more ad hoc or case-by-case basis, recognizing that the sidewalks in front of every store are different. There's no one size fits all for any of this. And I'm really looking forward to it as the weather gets better. We as social animals, we want to be outside. We want to be brunching at our favorite restaurant. And I'm hopeful that this is able to work out. I know Pat Maloney at the Department of Health has been great on this, as have others. And the hope is that this will roll out as soon as June 8th, outdoor dining. And you can bet over the month of June and even into July, there will be continuous tweaks and changes to make it better and better as each business figures out a new way to do things. So this is great, Debbie. I want to thank you for coming on today. I know you've been working so hard, and the shopkeepers and the employees have been working so hard to try to stay afloat during these incredibly difficult times to remain safe. And I'm going to remind everyone, you still got to wear your mask. You still got to sing 2 kids songs every time you wash your hands and get in between all those spots that you forget about, the fingertips. We're still doing that, right? And you still need to keep your physical distancing. And this is not the time to go wandering around aimlessly throughout town because you're bored and exposing folks, right? Do your business, be polite about it, be specific and deliberate about it, and then get back to a safer space. This is how we've been able to drive the pandemic numbers down. And as soon as they shoot back up again, it's going to be a tough time for everyone. So we want to keep being safe. 2 other things I want to remind you of is Tuesday is the election. Learn about your candidates and go vote. TommyVitolo.com/2020 Brookline candidates has loads of election information. It will tell you about the 4 polling locations that have been moved. You might end up wandering over to the wrong place, so save yourself the trip. Go to the website, make sure you know where you're going. And then when you get there, know about the candidates. We've got a competitive select board race, 3 candidates for 2 positions. Many town meeting precincts have competitive races. And look, we've got COVID-19, we've got an economic downturn, we've got 300 teachers who just received pink slips. It is an incredibly important time to have great leadership in town government. You, as a resident of the town with the right to vote, have the opportunity to shape that, and I want you to do it. So again, you can go here to get all sorts of information. None of it is from me. It's all from places like the League of Women Voters and Brookline PACs. and Brookline for Everyone and other organizations, TommyVitolo.com/2020 Brookline candidates. I did it at the beginning. Of course, I'll do it at the end. This is me. This is the same piece of paper I've been holding up on Zoom calls for about 3 months now. Give me a call. I know how to turn the ringer off. If you think it's a bad time for me, try anyway. It's not the end of the world to leave a message. I will get back to you. We're in this together. We're going to work together. Please continue to be safe. Please continue to be engaged. Please continue to watch Brookline Interactive. And Debbie, final words before we go.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, again, thank you so much for having me here today. It's been great talking to you and letting people know what's happening out there. There are a couple of chamber events that are coming up that we'd love to invite you to. We have Make Your Website ADA Compliant with Ben Bradley, Deborah Bradley, and Paul Sainer. That's on Tuesday, July 9th at 3. We have a chamber check-in, which is basically an opportunity to come and talk with other business people on Thursday, June 18th at 3. And we have a conversation with Reps Tommy Vitolo and Nika Elugardo on July 9th at 3 o'clock that we're very much looking forward to. We have a couple of other chamber events in the mix that we'll be announcing soon. And also wanted to let people know that if you would like to support the chamber, we have just instituted a non-business pro-business membership for individuals who are not associated with businesses. It's $50 to join. You get complimentary coffees and after hours online and eventually in person. And you can get our newsletter and be part of our community. So again, thank you so much for having me here. And if anybody has any questions or concerns about the business community, always feel free to get in touch with me, Debbie, DEBBIE, at brooklinechamber.com.
Debbie, thanks for joining me. Brookline Interactive, thank you as always. And everybody, let's stay safe, let's stay engaged, and we'll see you next week.